The phone slipped from my hand when I heard my own daughter Eliza say words that tore my heart apart. "Of course I'm not inviting you. Can you imagine how humiliating that would be in front of Adam's family?" Her voice was icy, calculating, like she was talking about tossing out a worn-out, worthless object. I stood in the hallway of my own house, the phone on the floor, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst. 64 years of life, 8 years of widowhood, and 38 years of being that child's mother, only to discover I was her disgrace. The conversation kept going on the other end. Eliza was talking to someone, probably Madison, my daughter-in-law, that second-rate influencer who posts nonstop about the house I bought for my son Michael. You know how my mom is. George will think our family is, well, you know what I mean. Adam has already tried to accept where we come from. Where we come from, huh? Did she forget that thanks to that very background, she studied architecture at one of the most expensive universities? Thanks to my real estate brokerage work, waking up at 5 a.m. for decades to build a small property empire, she now gets to cherry-pick clients. My knees trembled and I had to lean against the wall. I looked at the wallpaper what Eliza picked last year when she redecorated her mother's home to make it look more modern, and it suddenly felt like a mockery. Everything in this house screams the money I earned with my own hands, the same money she burns through like water. Besides, you know she won't know how to behave. She'll show up in a thrift store dress, talking too loud. Or she'll start telling embarrassing stories from when we were kids. Eliza giggled, the kind of laugh that made my blood turn to ice. Adam's family is very refined. His brother is a diplomat. His mother was Miss Universe back in the 80s. Can you picture my mom talking to them? The phone still lay on the floor while I stood frozen. Every word from my child felt like a knife to the chest. This was the child who used to crawl into my bed after nightmares. Who cried in my arms when classmates mocked her scuffed shoes? Who swore she'd take care of me for life? Michael agrees with me. Eliza went on. He thinks it's best if Mom doesn't come. Anyway, it's already hard enough to explain why Dad won't be there. We don't need more drama. Michael, the son I carried everywhere those first 2 years because he was often sick. The son I put through law school and for whom I bought a first apartment when he married Madison. Both my children had decided their mother was an embarrassment. Eliza's laughter echoed through the empty house. The best part is she won't even notice. She's been scatterbrained lately old. She might not even remember there's a wedding coming up. Right then, something in me snapped completely. It wasn't just being excluded or shamed, it was being belittled. They thought I was a silly, senile old woman they could manipulate at will. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I am not the forgetful old lady they imagine. I am Catherine Miller, the woman who turned a small $5,000 loan into a portfolio of 20 properties. The woman who raised 2 children alone after Robert, my husband, died, working 18 hours a day so they lacked nothing. I picked up the phone and set it carefully on its cradle, as if it were crystal. In my head, all the gears clicked back into their old rhythm, like the days I handled financial crises or negotiated with contractors who thought they could outsmart me because I'm a woman. I learned long ago, revenge must be served cold, and patience is the sharpest weapon a smart woman has. I went straight to my office, a little sanctuary lined with filing cabinets and contracts my children avoided like they were radioactive. Mom's boring paperwork, Eliza used to say when she was small. Ironic, isn't it, how that boring paperwork paid for all their luxuries? I turned on the computer and started reviewing every transfer from the last 5 years. Eliza luxury apartment on the Upper East Side, $20,000. Michael house in Westchester, $30,000. Eliza BMW, $15,000. Michael wedding costs with Madison, $10,000. Eliza master's program in Europe, $25,000. The list went on and on. Every transfer came with a sweet, manipulative justification. Mom, this is an investment in my future. Madison's pregnant, we need more space. It's just a loan. I'll repay you in 6 months. Loans that never got repaid. Investments that benefited only them. As I re-added the numbers, I remembered exactly how it started. 3 years after Robert died. I was exhausted, unmoored, steering on my own for the first time. Eliza came home with teary eyes. Mom, I have a great job opportunity, but I need to look more professional. Can you loan me a small amount to refresh my wardrobe? A small amount, $30,000 for clothes. I said yes because seeing her cry broke my heart, because I wanted her to have opportunities I never had. That was my first mistake, confusing love with money. Then came Michael. "Mom, we want to start a family, but our apartment is too small. Could you help with the down payment? Just the down payment. We'll handle the rest." Of course. 6 months later, they were back. "The monthly payments are too high, and Madison has to stop working because of the pregnancy." In the end, I paid off the whole house. The script never changed. They came with a sob story, an urgent need, and a promise of independence. "This is the last time, Mom. After this, we won't bother you, just until we're stable." Sugar-coated lies, punctuated with cheek kisses and calculating hugs, and I was the fool, mistaking need for love. I thought I was a generous mother, but in truth I was an emotional ATM. They pushed the right buttons, I dispensed cash. The biggest shock came when I opened the credit card statements in their names. Eliza spent $2,500 last month, Michael $2,000. All pricey restaurants, designer brands, weekend getaways. They lived like millionaires on my dime, while I shopped thrift and cooked at home to save. The phone rang. Eliza. "Hi, Mom. How are you?" Now her voice was honeyed and tender, so different from an hour earlier when she spoke of me like I was clutter. "I need to talk to you about something important. Could you come to my place tomorrow?" "About the wedding." "Of course, sweetheart," I said, as gently as I could while a cold smile formed inside me. I knew exactly what Eliza wanted to discuss, not whether I'd attend, but how I'd pay for it. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up until 3 a.m., combing through documents, contracts, transfer orders. My brain worked like a computer, adding up years of generosity mistaken for love, years of unreturned affection while drafting a plan. Because if decades in business taught me anything, it's this: information is power, and I had plenty of information. The next morning, I arrived at Eliza's at exactly 10 a.m., as agreed. I wore the plainest dress, the one she loathes, and carried a scuffed faux leather bag. I wanted to look exactly like the harmless old lady they imagine. Eliza hugged me, the scent of expensive perfume and lies. "You're here, great. Sit, Mom. I made coffee." She poured coffee into a fine porcelain cup I'd given her for her birthday. That set cost a secretary's monthly salary. Everything in her home shouted luxury. Italian furniture, a giant TV, wall art, my money turned into decor for strangers to admire. "Mom, I want to talk about the wedding." Eliza sat across from me, crossed her legs with practiced elegance. "You know, Adam and I want everything to be special, truly elegant. His family is so high class." That word again. Classy, as if I were a second-rate item that needed to be hidden so I wouldn't spoil her premium image. I nodded, keeping the simple-minded smile she expected. "The problem is costs have gone up. The venue alone is $20,000. Then catering, flowers, music, photography." Eliza hesitated, as if numbers overwhelmed her. "It's almost $40,000 in total. $40,000, what many families save for a lifetime." Eliza said it as if that were a reasonable price for a 6-hour party. I sipped coffee, kept my face blank. "Adam has pitched in, of course. His family is helping too. But we're still short." A calculated pause. "We need you to cover the rest." "Around $20,000. $20,000 said as lightly as borrowing $20 for bus fare. As she spoke, Eliza twisted her engagement ring, the childhood tell she has when she lies. And she was lying. I knew very well Adam's family hadn't given a penny. I knew because I'd checked. "I know it's a lot, Mom, but think of it as an investment in my future. Adam has important connections. This wedding could open doors for my career. And besides," her tone turned sugary, manipulative, "this will be the last big help, I promise. After the wedding, we'll be completely independent." The last time. I've heard that phrase so many times, like a scratched record every time they need money. "Just this last time, Mom. After this, we won't need anything. One final investment in our future." Lies I swallowed over and over like a fool addicted to the illusion of being needed. "Mom." Eliza leaned in and took my hand with her perfectly manicured fingers. I haven't sent your formal invite because we wanted it to be a surprise. We're planning a very intimate, very family-oriented ceremony. Only the closest people. Another lie. I'd seen the guest list on her coffee table. 250 people, politicians, business owners, influencers, every important face Eliza needed to build her image as a successful woman. But her own mother's name wasn't there. Anyway, I just need you to confirm the money so I can lock everything in. Vendors are waiting. Eliza squeezed my hand, aiming for fragile. I trust you. You've always been there for me. Yes, I was always there. To fund whims, bankroll dreams, mop up financial messes. But when I needed a shoulder those endless Sunday afternoons alone after Robert died, they were nowhere. Of course, sweetheart. I smiled with the maternal smile I've practiced for years. You know I'll always support you. Eliza exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath forever. She had no idea I already knew the whole truth. You're the best mom, she said, kissing my cheek with counterfeit lips. I promise this wedding will be perfect. Adam's always grateful to you. He says he's lucky to have such a generous mother-in-law. Adam, the perfect groom, who's barely said 5 sentences to me in 2 years of dating Eliza, who looks irritated every time I visit, as if my presence taints the elegant air they've curated, but my money isn't tainted that they accept with open arms. Leaving Eliza's, I drove straight to William's office, my accountant, and one of the few true friends left. William had been Robert's right hand at work. After Robert died, he became my most trusted advisor, one of the rare men who never looked down on me for being a woman. Catherine, what a surprise. Everything okay? William stood with a genuine smile, the kind I hadn't seen at home in a long time. The office smelled faintly of coffee and old paper, the scent that soothed me, reminding me of when Robert and I built our business together. William, I need a special favor. I want to audit exactly how much I've transferred to my children over the last 5 years, every single dollar. I sat across from him, hands folded like the executive woman I was for decades. William frowned. Are you sure? The numbers might be shocking. He knew my family too well. He'd been the silent witness to every financial emergency, which always landed on me. I've never been more sure. I want precise data. Dates, purposes, and tell me what my assets look like if I cut all support. My voice was firm, businesslike. I hadn't heard myself sound like that in a long time. William worked for 2 hours, typing, checking transfers, tallying totals. I sat still, watching years of generosity turn into cold, merciless figures. When he finished, he handed me a sheet numbers that took my breath away. Over 5 years, Catherine, you've transferred roughly $140,000 to Eliza and Michael. That's not counting properties held in the revocable trust and assets in the LLC you manage as trustee divided by managing member, the credit cards you pay monthly, where they're only authorized users, and the life insurance policies naming them as beneficiaries. William looked at me with a mix of pity and respect. You're incredibly generous. Generous, a pretty word for what was, in fact, my systematic foolishness. $140,000 more than some people earn in a lifetime, and I gifted it to 2 people who consider their mother a disgrace. Tell me, William, if I cut everything, how long until they crash? A rhetorical question. We both knew. Eliza spends more than she earns every month. Architecture pays modestly, but not enough for her current lifestyle. Michael's better, but between the mortgage, Madison's, spending, and the luxuries, I'd guess 3 months max. 3 months. All the arrogance, the shame they felt for me, the facade of independence, it would all collapse after 3 months without my money. That information was priceless and bitter. I had created 2 financial monsters who couldn't live without draining their mother's accounts. That night, alone at home, I made a decision that would change everything. I poured a drink, the expensive bottle Eliza gave me for my birthday, bought with my money, of course, and sat in my favorite armchair where Robert used to read financial news aloud, where we planned every investment, every strategic step. I dialed George Adams' brother, whom I'd learned enough about to know he's a serious, respectable diplomat. If Eliza was ashamed of me, it was time the groom's family learned exactly who was funding his wedding. Good evening, George. This is Catherine Miller, Eliza's mother. Sorry to call late, but I need to discuss something important regarding your brother's wedding. George sounded surprised but polite. Yes, Miss Miller. How can I help? George, I want to clarify a few things about the wedding costs. My daughter says your family is contributing, but I think there's been a misunderstanding. I want to be sure we all have accurate information. My voice was sweet and gentle, like an old lady eager to avoid trouble. Silence for a long moment. Miss Miller, I'm afraid I don't follow. We didn't agree to any contributions. Adam said you and Eliza had it covered. Confusion colored his voice. Perfect. Eliza had fabricated that too. Oh, how odd. No matter, George. I'll handle the expenses. As usual. I let the last words hang, like an accidental confession. As usual. He sounded intrigued. If I may ask, have you been supporting Eliza for a long time? My opening. Well, mothers do what they must, right? Eliza's had a few. Hurdles, apartment, car. That program in Europe, we handle those within the family. I paused exactly long enough. Don't worry, I have enough real estate to cover everything. Real estate, that word always gets attention. George is a diplomat. He understands the weight of property. You're very generous, George said. Adam never mentioned Eliza having financial difficulties. Eliza is very proud. She doesn't want people to know she relies on her mother. But just between us, George, without me, she couldn't maintain this lifestyle. Each word planted a time bomb Eliza couldn't see. After hanging up, I called Michael. Time to test the more timid, easily swayed one. Maybe he could still be saved. Hi, Mom. Everything okay? It's late. Michael's voice was sleepy, slightly shaky. Eliza had likely told him about the money. Michael, we need to talk seriously about your sister's wedding. I adjusted my posture, ready for the performance of my life. Eliza asked me for a lot of money. Something worries me, though. What is it, Mom? Michael was instantly awake. I've been thinking about my future 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when I'm older. You two will have your own families. I let my voice hitch, a painful confession. Mom, you're fine. But I heard the confusion. He knew where I was heading. Yes, I'm fine now. But 5 years? 10? I don't want to be a burden. I'm thinking of selling a few properties, downsizing, keeping things simple and fully self-sufficient. Silence. Michael was calculating. If I sell property, simplify, take full control. His extra income disappears. The homes he expects to inherit go poof, the loans that are gifts end, and the safety net named Mom vanishes. Don't say that. We'd never abandon you. You're our family. Sweet words wrapped around a rising panic. Oh, I'm relieved to hear that. Because honestly, I sometimes feel like I'm in the way, like with Eliza's wedding. What about Eliza's wedding? Michael tried to sound casual, but I know that tone same as when he broke something as a kid. She said it'll be very intimate, small, only the most important people. I get it at my age. I don't fit flashy parties. My voice blended resignation with a hint of self-sacrifice. He swallowed audibly. I didn't know she said that to you. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. There isn't, son. She was perfectly clear. She said Adam's family is very high class, very refined, and I'm just an old woman who doesn't know how to act in fancy places. Each word stabbed his conscience. That's not true. Michael trailed off. He couldn't finish without lying, and we both knew it. It's okay, Michael. I understand. You've moved up, entered a different class. Naturally, you're embarrassed of a mother who came up from the street market. I paused for a long time. I only hope that when I move and sell everything, you'll understand I did it to give you space to shine without my shadow. Silence on the line for nearly a minute. He was processing the implications. If I move, sell down, become fully independent, they'll have to live on their own resources. Please don't decide yet. Let me talk to Eliza, he said, voice quivering. I heard Madison in the background peppering him with questions. I promise I'll sort it out. I don't want you two fighting because of me, sweetheart. If Eliza thinks it's best I don't come, I'll respect that. It's her special day. Outwardly, I sounded like a resigned mother. Inside, I smiled. Michael was panicking. My plan was working. Mom, we never wanted to hurt you. I'll talk to Eliza tomorrow. Please don't do anything yet. Now he sounded desperate. All right, dear, but I've already decided one thing. Today I told Eliza I'd pay for her wedding. $20,000, consider it a parting gift before I simplify my life. The lie slid off my tongue like honey laced with venom. The silence afterward was deafening. Michael was realizing Eliza had asked for $20,000 and cut him out of the discussion. Since childhood, they'd competed for my money but coordinated to maximize gains. This move broke their alliance. $20,000? Eliza asked for that much? His voice shifted now, flavored with betrayal. Yes, for the venue, catering, flowers. She said it'll be very fancy. I guess because you already have a family, you don't need anything, right? I added one more calculated lie. Michael and Madison are always asking. Renovations, vacations, Madison's new car. Mom, we have expenses too. Madison is pregnant again. We need to expand the house. He took the bait perfectly. Pregnant? Wonderful news. I feigned delight. Though I knew it was a lie last week, Madison posted herself sipping wine. Of course I'll help with that too. After all, you still include me in your life. That last line was the killing stroke. He understood instantly. Eliza got money but excluded me. He included me and got nothing. The math was not in his favor. I hung up with a satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long while, I controlled the game. My children were used to manipulating me, forgetting I was a businesswoman before I was a mother. I know every bargaining trick, every pressure hold by heart. At 7 a.m. the next morning, the curtain rose. Eliza called, nearly shouting, "What did you say to Michael? He's furious, says I'm selfish and cut him out." "Good morning, sweetheart. Why would he be mad?" "I only told him how beautiful your wedding will be." I spoke like a harmless old lady confused by everyone's bad mood. You told him I asked you for $20,000 and that I excluded him?" Eliza was losing control, rare for her, usually cold and calculating. "Well, it's true, isn't it? You asked for that amount yesterday." As for Michael, he asked if he was invited, and I said it was only for the important people. I assumed he knew. I paused, seemingly by accident. Eliza muttered a curse. "Mom, Michael is my brother. Of course he's invited." "Oh, good. So when you said important people, it turns out you excluded only me." "I understand." I let my voice fill with naive hurt. "That's not it. Of course you're important. It's just..." She was cornered. She couldn't explain why her own mother wasn't important enough for her wedding. All right, I get the message, so I decided to simplify my life. Yesterday I spoke to a broker about selling several assets. If you don't need me as a mother, at least I won't be a financial burden. I let the words drip into her brain like acid. "You're selling assets? Which ones?" The pretense dropped. Pure financial panic now. First the beach house, then a couple of downtown condos. "Last night, George gave me great tips on how to liquidate smartly." I said George's name like it was nothing. "You talked to George Adams' brother?" Eliza sounded faint. "Yes, very polite. He said their family isn't contributing to the wedding. Adam told him you and I were covering everything." I stopped right there. He also asked quite a bit about my properties, seemed very impressed. Eliza hung up without goodbye. I knew she was racing to call Adam to find out what he'd told his family about the Miller finances. The next 3 days, my phone rang non-stop. It was like watching dominoes fall. First, Michael asked to take me to lunch with Madison to clear the air. Then Eliza, unusually sweet, invited me for coffee to plan the wedding together. Then, Michael again, begging to take me to a checkup because you've seemed stressed. But the call that told me the most came Thursday evening. It was Julia, my 16-year-old granddaughter, Michael and Madison's daughter. Her voice sounded different, lower, steadier. "Grandma, can I come by after school tomorrow? I need to talk." Julia has always been special, the only one who seemed to inherit my business instincts and my ability to see through varnish. "Of course, sweetheart. Anytime. Julia is my soft spot, the only one who loves me without attaching price tags." The next day, Julia came in wearing her school uniform, her serious face reminding me of myself at her age. She sat in the kitchen, declined juice, and got straight to it. "Grandma, Mom, and Dad talk about you all the time lately," hushed arguments that stop when I walk in. Julia has Robert's eyes that miss nothing. Mom's glued to the bank accounts. Dad's obviously stressed. What do you think? I genuinely wanted the perspective of the only honest person in the family. I think they're scared you'll stop supporting them. Julia looked me in the eyes. And I think it's time. Her words stunned me more than any pleading call. A 16-year-old understood the corrosive dynamic I'd fed for years. You've watched this family your whole life, Julia went on. I've watched Dad and Aunt Eliza ask for money nonstop. Watched Mom plan a big purchase right before visiting you. Watched everyone's attitude shift whenever they needed something. Her clear-eyed honesty tightened my chest. And I've watched you give everything and ask for nothing. I tried to justify. That's what a mother, a grandmother does, Julia. No, Grandma. Moms teach kids to stand on their own. You love us, but you don't turn us into moochers. She squeezed my hand. Yesterday, Mom said, if you sell assets, we'll have to move somewhere smaller like it's a disaster, just because we'd have to live on Dad's salary. That brutal candor silenced me. I had raised 2 children who didn't understand money because they'd never had to earn it, and now they were teaching their child the same entitlement and dependence. Julia, do you know your aunt isn't inviting me to the wedding? I needed to know how far the plan had spread. Julia nodded sadly. Mom told me like it was normal. She said, Aunt Eliza wants a very fancy wedding and you don't fit. I asked how she could exclude her own mother. She said I'm too young to understand. But I do understand. Julia pressed my hand. They're ashamed of you for being real, for working hard, for not pretending to be someone else. Watching my granddaughter defend my dignity while my own children trampled it, I made my final decision. Julia was the only one worthy of inheriting. She alone carried my true values. Julia, I need your help with something important, but you'll have to keep it secret, even from your parents. What do you need? Her eyes lit with curiosity. Help me set up a family meeting. I want everyone here Saturday night. Tell them I have an important announcement about the future. I smiled, cold with justice. And bring your phone to record everything. What are you planning? Julia sounded both impressed and worried. Justice, sweetheart. After 64 years, I'm going to serve it ice cold. I squeezed her hand. And you'll see how a woman takes back her dignity. That night, after Julia left, I sat in my office and finalized the entire file. Transfer orders, statements, screenshots of conversations, call recordings, everything meticulously sorted by each child's name. Saturday night, they arrived at 8 o'clock on the dot, as I requested. Eliza came first, elegant but jittery, carrying an expensive bouquet likely bought with my money. Michael and Madison arrived 5 minutes later, Julia. Behind them, phone tucked away, ready. Mom, we're glad you called this meeting. Eliza kissed my cheek with lips trained in practiced lies. It's been so long since we had a family dinner. I need to tell you about some important decisions I've made, I said, leading them to the living room. I'd prepared coffee and cookies like the old days when we truly were a family. Madison sat on the sofa, checking her phone. Michael tapped his watch face. Eliza smiled too brightly, the smile she wore whenever she wanted something. Only Julia was calm, settled into the corner armchair, observing everything with sharp eyes that missed nothing. As you know, I've been thinking a lot about my future, what it looks like as I get older. I poured coffee into the set Eliza chose for me last year. I've also been thinking about you two, your lives and what you've achieved. You're doing fine. Eliza leaned in, soothing. At my age, you have to be realistic, I sipped, savoring the moment. So I've made some very important decisions about my assets. The room thickened. Michael stopped tapping. Madison looked up from her phone. Eliza's smile held, but I saw the muscles in her neck go taut. First, about my very interesting conversation with George Adams' brother. I looked straight at Eliza. Her face drained. Turns out he didn't know his family was expected to contribute financially to the wedding. Mom, that's a misunderstanding, Eliza began, but I raised a hand. Let me finish, sweetheart. George seemed fascinated when I described the number of properties I own and how I've supported this family for years. I smiled kindly. He found it very generous of me to bankroll grown children with jobs. Michael cleared his throat. We're not being bankrolled, Mom. We work, we have income. Do you, Michael? I pulled the first file. According to my books, over 5 years. I've transferred to you about $60,000. Your net income is around $4,000 a month from case-by-case contracts, which doesn't cover your mortgage and lifestyle without me." Michael went silent. Madison stared at him, panic and reproach in her eyes. Clearly she hadn't known the real numbers. "And you, Eliza?" I pulled the second file. "In the same period, you've received about $80,000. Architecture pays modestly, but it doesn't cover an Upper East Side apartment, a BMW, and European trips." "Mom, those were loans, investments in our future," Eliza said, trying to keep her poise. "Loans?" I laughed without joy. "Show me one paper with repayment terms. One document admitting you owe me." Silence. There was none because they never intended to repay. "The most interesting part," I continued, "is that throughout the years I've transferred all that money. You decided I wasn't good enough to be present at your life's big moments." I played the audio of Eliza talking about the wedding. Her voice filled the room. "Of course I'm not inviting her. Can you imagine how humiliating that would be in front of Adam's family?" Eliza jumped up like she'd been shocked. "Did you record me?" "I recorded nothing," I said coolly. "You forgot to hang up while gossiping with Madison. I listened for 20 minutes, listened to you call me a shameful burden." Michael tried to mediate. "Eliza, is that true? Did you really say that?" "It's not what you think. I was stressed about the wedding," Eliza stammered, the polished veneer crumbling. "You were worried about saving face with your fiancé's family, a family, by the way, that hasn't paid a cent toward a $40,000 wedding." My voice turned razor sharp, pure business. "A wedding I'm allowed to fund but not allowed to attend." Madison finally whispered, "There must be an explanation." "There is, Madison. My children live like millionaires on my money, then feel ashamed of the woman whose sweat made it possible." I stood. The old energy flowed back. "So I've made final decisions for my future and for yours. Effective immediately. Every credit card where you are authorized users canceled. Every recurring transfer from my accounts divided by LLC permanently stopped. For properties held in my revocable trust divided by LLC, I am revoking all powers of attorney and signing authority you've been allowed." Monday morning, William files the full set of amendments. Each word was measured steel, calibrated for maximum impact. "You can't do that." Eliza shot up. "I have payment schedules, commitments. I absolutely can. The cards are mine, the money is mine, and the assets are legally titled to my trust divided by LLC. You were permitted limited use by delegated authority, which I have now revoked." I lifted a thick legal binder. "William has everything ready. It takes effect Monday morning." Michael looked crushed. "Mom, we have a mortgage, Julia's expenses. The life you've built is really the life I built for you, with my work, my money, my sacrifices," I said calmly. "From now on, you'll learn to build with your own resources," Madison cried quietly. Eliza paced like a caged animal. Michael held his head. Only Julia stayed composed, discreetly recording. "This is emotional blackmail," Eliza shouted. "You're punishing us for a private conversation blackmail." I laughed, cold, sharp. "You plan to throw a wedding on my dime, a party I wasn't invited to, and I'm the blackmailer? Adam will cancel everything. His family will think we're scammers." Eliza nearly lost it. "You should have thought of that before calling me an embarrassment in front of that very family." I sat, unhurried, watching her unravel. "But don't worry, I have an offer." All three looked up, desperate hope flickering. "You can keep the wedding money, the $20,000 you asked for, on one condition. I sit at the main table. You introduce me proudly as the working mother who paid for your entire education, and you publicly thank the woman who made your luxurious life possible." Eliza went pale. I can't. Adam's family, then there's no money. No money, no wedding." I shrugged. "Your choice, fake image or your marriage." Michael tried one last plea. "Mom, please reconsider. We're family, we're your children. Children who are ashamed of me, who lie to me, and who use me like an ATM." I walked to Julia. "But I'm not cruel. Julia isn't at fault for having parents who live off others." I put my hand on my granddaughter's shoulder. "Julia, you remain the sole beneficiary of my estate. When I pass, everything is yours. And when you turn 18, you'll access the education fund I created for you." Julia hugged me tight. "Thank you, Grandma. I just want you to be happy." "I will be, for the first time in years." I looked at my 2 children, their eyes a mix of shock and despair. "Next week I'm moving. I bought a lovely condo in Saratoga Springs, right by the lake. Julia can visit any time." "You're moving?" Michael sounded lost. "And this house, I've sold it. Already found buyers." I smiled. "Truly, a young couple. They'll turn this into a home full of real love." Eliza collapsed onto the couch. "You can't destroy our family like this." "I'm not destroying anything, Eliza. You destroyed it the day you valued my money more than my presence." I walked to the door. Meeting adjourned. "Clear your things out of my house by Wednesday." 3 months later, I sat on my new balcony, sipping coffee and watching the sunrise gild the lake. Julia visited every weekend, excited about college plans and her dream to study business, my only heir to the entrepreneurial spirit. Eliza canceled the wedding. Adam left her. Once the truth about the finances came out, Michael and Madison were forced to sell the house and move into a small apartment. Both took part-time jobs to get by. They never apologized. Never admitted fault, but they never asked me for money again. I found peace in the quiet, mornings by the water, afternoons catching up on books I'd missed for years, nights planning Julia's future. I learned the most important lesson of my life. True love can't be bought, and dignity is priceless. My children chose money over love. I chose peace over being drained, and I never looked back. 2 years after the night that changed everything, I got an unexpected call. A Tuesday afternoon. I was watering the plants on the balcony when the phone rang. The name surprised me. Michael. "Hi, Mom." His voice had changed, steadier, more tired. "I know I have no right to call after all this time, but I need to talk." I sat in my favorite chair, one I bought with my own money, without asking anyone. "Go ahead, Michael." "Mom, Madison and I are getting divorced." His voice cracked. "Without your money," she realized she didn't love who I really am. She loved the lifestyle you provided. I felt neither glee nor sorrow, just the recognition of the inevitable. "I'm sorry for you," I said. "No, you're not, and you're right not to be." He was quiet for a long while. "These 2 years have been the hardest, but also the most honest of my life. For the first time in decades, I've had to face myself without your money as a shield." I heard cafe noise. He had probably sat there for hours to work up the courage to call. "So who are you, Michael?" I asked. I truly wanted to know. "I'm a mediocre lawyer who spent years feeling entitled to your money. I'm a father who taught his daughter that money is something you ask for, not earn. I'm a man who felt ashamed of the hardest working woman he knows." His voice trembled. "I'm a coward who let my sister mistreat you because it served me financially." Those words were knives, but this time they cut the right way. "I'm not calling to ask for money. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I don't deserve it yet. I'm calling to say I finally understand what you did to us." He inhaled. "You forced us to grow up." I was quiet, weighing each word. Outside, an elderly couple strolled around the lake hand in hand every afternoon for the past 2 years. I often wonder if real love looks like that. "Michael, how's Julia?" That was what truly mattered to me. "She's amazing. Top of her class this semester. She took a part-time job at an accounting office. She says she wants to learn the value of money before inheriting from you." Michael laughed, without bitterness. "She's exactly like you, determined, sharp business mind." "And Eliza?" I asked, unsure. I wanted the answer. "Eliza works at a small architecture firm. She lives in a modest apartment, drives an old car. She looks more real than she has in years, but she's angry. Angry at you, at me, at the world." "Why angry?" "Because she realized the important connections she thought she had existed only because of your money. When the fancy dinners and expensive gifts stopped, those friendships vanished." He paused. "Adam married a rich heiress a few months after leaving her." I stood and stepped to the railing. The sunset painted the lake gold, a view I never tire of. "Why tell me all this, Michael?" "Because I want you to know your plan worked. You broke us to rebuild us. Eliza doesn't get it yet, but I do." His voice steadied. "I'm learning to be a better man." "And Madison, how's she handling the divorce?" He gave a bitter little laugh. "She already has a new boyfriend, an older." Businessman who funds her just like I used to. With your money. Some people never learn. We were silent for a few minutes. I watched the sunset. He probably stared at a cold cup of coffee in some unfamiliar cafe. Mom, there's one more thing. He drew a breath. On your 66th birthday, Julia asked why we didn't call to wish you well. I didn't know what to say. I'd spent that birthday in peace, only Julia stopped by with a homemade pie and a handwritten card. Perfect. I didn't need those calls, Michael. Yes, you did. And we needed to make them, but we were too proud, too stubborn to admit we missed you. He paused. I miss you not as an ATM, but as a mother. My eyes stung, not from sadness, but something more complicated. Maybe relief, maybe hope. What do you want from this call, Michael? Nothing, Mom. Absolutely nothing. His voice thickened. I just want you to know the man you raised is still here beneath the pile of garbage I heaped on myself. And I want you to know I'm proud to be the son of Catherine Miller, the woman who built an entire enterprise with her own hands. I set the phone down and stood watching the last light die on the water. For the first time in 2 years, I felt something like hope for my family. Maybe love can't be bought, but sometimes you find it in the quiet that remains when money is gone. When the last door closed, Catherine didn't choose revenge, she chose boundaries and dignity. The love for her children didn't disappear. It simply stopped being equated with money. Perhaps we've all been mistaken like that, thinking giving is love, until we run dry and realize love also needs limits, so both sides can grow. I think the strongest thing Catherine did wasn't cutting off support, but saying clearly, I still love you, but I won't hurt myself to prove it anymore. And then, in the quiet after the storm, a seed of hope still sprouted from an honest phone call, from a grandchild who saw the truth, from a mother who finally found peace with herself. What about you? If you were Catherine, what would you do differently at the moment of choosing between love and boundaries? Have you ever set a limit to save a relationship, and how did that change everything? Share your perspective in the comments. Your story might be the mirror someone needs right now. If you'd like to keep following stories about family and how we learn to love without losing ourselves, follow the channel so you don't miss the next chapter. Here, we tell, we listen, and we grow together.